The game I'll be reviewing this week is Rise of the Ronin. Now, this game came out in late March. It was the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2, and that game was kind of the big game of that time. It was on all the different big platforms, and Rise of the Ronin is a PS5 exclusive, so it kind of didn't have the same push public wise. And so I'm seeing now that a lot of players are finishing up DD2 and they're starting to dive into Rise of the Ronin. I myself just finished. It was a game that locked me in instantly. As soon as you start playing, there's a major twist right in the first hour or so of gameplay. The graphics have had all the updates since the release, so now it's buttery smooth. It actually looks, 4K quality in all the different aspects, and that was one of my biggest knocks at first. It would switch from great graphics all the way down to like PS2 graphics. So that was definitely something that they needed to fix, and they have. Um, the game is set in 19th century Japan, right as like the Western influences are coming into the islands and everything is changing for the way of the samurai and they're trying to navigate their way forward. So we're going to dive into the review of the game and then kind of get the information and then we'll talk about it and give it a rating. In Rise of the Ronin, you step into the shoes of a nameless Ronin known as the Veiled Edge. Navigating the turbulent Bakumatsu era in 19th century Japan, this action role-playing game immerses you in a vast open world where every decision you make shapes your journey. With player decisions profoundly influencing the portrayal and personality of the Veiled Edge, the world is your canvas. Your choices will determine how the story unfolds, affecting character relationships and the ultimate fate of Japan. Explore the rich landscapes of Yokohama, Kyoto, and Edo, each teeming with side missions and hostile enemies. Traverse the diverse environments by foot, horseback, or take to the skies with the gliding device Avicula. Your grappling rope will also be your best ally, aiding in both combat and in stealth. Combat in Rise of Ronin is dynamic and intense, offering a variety of weapons and fighting styles. Master the art of parrying and adapt your tactics to each unique enemy. Every battle and choice you make could lead to different narrative outcomes, making each playthrough unique. Set during the final years of the Edo period, Rise of the Ronin immerses players in a Japan struggling with internal strife and foreign influence. As the Veiled Edge, players will navigate a web of political intrigue and civil war, encountering iconic historical figures and making choices that shape the fate of a nation. Visually, Rise of the Ronin captures the essence of 19th century Japan with breathtaking detail. From the bustling streets of Edo to the serene landscapes of Kyoto, every location is rendered with an artistry that brings the historical period to vivid life. The character designs reflect the era's aesthetic, enhancing the immersive experience. The auditory experience of Rise of Ronin is equally compelling. Featuring a score by renowned composer Anand Zur, the soundtrack weaves traditional Japanese music with dynamic orchestral compositions, elevating both the game's intense combat and its poignant narrative moments. With its expansive world and depth of content, Rise of the Ronin offers substantial replay value. Players can explore hidden areas, undertake numerous side missions, and uncover various narrative paths shaped by their decisions. The game's rich historical setting and intricate combat mechanics ensure there's always something new to discover. In conclusion, Rise of the Ronin stands as a remarkable blend of historic storytelling, engaging gameplay, and visual splendor. Whether you're a fan of action RPGs or just intrigued by Japan's Bakumatsu period, this game promises an unforgettable journey. Prepare to unsheath your sword, draw your pistol, and step into history with Rise of the Ronin. All right, so now that you've seen the game, let's kind of just go over my thoughts. I thought it was a great game. I think there was a lot of comparison to Ghost of Tsushima, and rightfully so. It's a samurai game, PlayStation. People are going to make those comparisons. And I think it holds up. I think because there's such a difference in the 12th century to the 9th century, in which Ghost of Tsushima was 12th century and this one is 19th century. I think it gives it enough room that both can have their own space. Graphics wise, I would lean a little bit more Ghost just because that was just an amazing game. Like the details of that game just was unmatched, and it's going to be something that's hard to compare any game to. But Rise of the Ronins was equally as beautiful. The one area that I can see that to me was just a little bit superior with Ghost would just be like the landscapes and like the ones with like long flowing grass, things like that. It just looked way better in Ghost versus Rise of the Ronin is definitely graphic forward, but they also focus a lot on the story, the gameplay. So it takes a little bit of a hit graphics wise, but everything, I mean, the music score alone is I think better than Ghost. I would have to go back just to refresh. But yeah, I mean, the game was amazing. As far as the storyline, I gave that a 9 just because it was an epic telling of a historical event in time, and they leaned heavy into the history, but at the same time didn't let it constrict them as far as, the telling of the game, the different features, the skills, things like that. I thought that it was a really dope way of, your decisions that you make change the overall outcome of the story. So you can play through multiple different times and get different outcomes of not only just the main storyline, but the different side missions and quests. So that was really dope. As far as character development, I gave that an 8.5 because, like I said, there's an epic twist in the beginning of the game that involves a character that you build. There's twists and turns throughout the actual game itself in the storyline where you become friends with someone, but you kind of are unsure of, which way they're headed and if those motives line up with your motives, and you can decide whether or not to continue with that person or you can support someone else. So the game is just amazing in how it lets you pick the storyline and how you want to develop everything. So yeah, it definitely deserved an 8.5. As far as the animation fight style, I gave that a 9.5 as well. It's a great fighting game. Like the different styles of weapons, there's probably I want to say a good 5 to 10 for different fighting styles for each weapon that they have in the game, and then it goes even further and breaks those into different styles and different moves and combos. So it's an amazing game as far as fighting style, as far as just the way that it's smooth and the motions. The parlays are it's one of the best parlay games that I've played as far as just how they take it from being able to use a staff or a bayonet rifle or any other weapon, katana that you may be using. The timings are different, the animations are different when you land them, the things that happen from your powers that progress are different. So that's just amazing development overall. As far as the music score, that got a pretty high score of 8.5. The music is actual orchestra music. It was written by a great composer. They know how to hit the moments exactly right as it builds the anticipation and tension when you're going through the levels and you're getting closer. The music tenses up, it changes. When you're walking through the fields, you hear certain little flute sounds in the wind. And it's just an overall pleasing score music wise as far as a video game. As far as pacing, I gave that a 9 because right out the gate, you're engaged. It then falls off as you're kind of discovering, what the storyline is, who you are as a character, and you're making these choices. But it never like goes to a point where you're bored or there's not something you're looking forward to. The gameplay movement, as far as between missions, getting from one area to another, is smooth. They've got a lot of fast travel, and there's still the times where you're on foot or horseback or flying, but you never feel like it's taking you an abnormally long time to get to the next part of the mission to progress. You could probably do each mission in 15-20 minutes depending on the mission. So I thought that was a really good, thoughtful way of handling the game so that people who need to take a break or if they need to go do something else, you don't feel like, oh, I'm so stuck in this mission I can't progress until I do something else. So it's just great for pacing. And then with the side missions being integral to the story, but at the same time, you could choose which ones you wanted to do. I like that as well. Coming from playing Dragon's Dogma, I definitely had a big problem with just how much time was spent traveling and traversing to the next area. So I thought that was done very well. As far as themes and messages, I gave that a strong score of an 8. There's a lot of takeaways from this game about loyalty, about being 100% committed to your mission and your purpose, helping others to succeed and to get further in their own values and missions, and just deciding, where the line is for yourself personally on what's right and what's wrong. So I thought this was a great game as far as themes and messages when right now there aren't really many other games that are kind of hitting on things like that, in my opinion. As far as gameplay, again, I gave that a 9. There's honestly not too much more you could ask for from this game. The takeaways that I did take away from it were just because it wasn't quite ready at launch with the difference in the graphics, and it did kind of make it unplayable, in my opinion, just because you don't spend $70 on a video game to 1 second go from one of the greatest scenes ever in a video game to the next scene they're talking and their mouths are pixelated, moving stiff. It threw me off completely, and it's why I took a break and just played Dragon's Dogma 2 at first. But I'm very thankful they did the updates and that I was able to come back, because this would be a game that if you didn't play, I would honestly feel like, you missed out on something. And so overall, with all of the scores added up, I gave Rise of the Ronin an overall 8.8, which right now is the highest of any game score I've given. And it's how I feel it's the best game that I've played so far in 2024. There's really nothing that I would change about the game. I definitely will probably be going back to play some of the other storylines and try to get different endings just to see exactly what those endings are, how they change the game. There's one mid game that completely changes how the Western influences change in Japan. I don't want to give any spoilers, but you make a choice basically between America and Britain, and I'd like to see, what happens if you make the other choice. Do they still take over, or does it change up? But yeah, I would definitely want to play this game more. I'm definitely gonna put more hours into the game. I think I put in maybe probably about 40 hours to finish the storyline, and there's still so many more side missions. So it's far from complete. It's definitely a game that you would want to play more of. So I think that if this is a game you've been looking at and you're just kind of on the fence if you want to try it or not, definitely go ahead, pull the trigger, and let me know what you think. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.